as somebody said, opinions may differ, but facts are sacred. And therefore, they must be true to the, if they are true to their own profession, they must endeavor to present the facts as they are, and they should not become instruments for the distortion of facts. Accountability is best ensured by self-regulation and peer criticism. Because the question was asked about how do we regulate all of this? There is the press council, there are similar institutions. But the best way, as in the case of judicial activism, is best done by peer criticism and self-regulation. Now, if self-regulation doesn't work out, then possibly there is going to be some external instrument coming in order to ensure regulation or in order to implement regulation. Now, therefore, I think the media is expanding. Knowledge is exploding in a sense. And in that particular context, opinions of different sorts are going to be expressed. But what is really required is that the readers or those who look to the computer or look into the computer must also become more discriminating. In fact, many people thought that with the computers coming in, there will be less use of paper. But on the other hand, I find there is more use of paper after the computer has come. And you do not know what somebody is sending, and you press the button, comes out 45 pages of some trivial matter. So instead of conserving paper, I think we are really consuming more paper because of this. But I believe that print media has still life left. And if print media can rise to the occasion and offer to the readers a depth which is lacking perhaps in the electronic media, then it will be able to offer a stiff opposition to the electronic media. Now, as I said, I'm not an expert in journalism, and I do not intend, therefore, to speak more on it. But Mr. Jain must bear the responsibility now. Having given the platform to an economist, he cannot but talk of economics. I think the Indian economy is currently passing through a difficult phase. Growth has slowed down. Inflation remains high. The fiscal and current account deficits are also high. If we want to achieve a high sustained rate of growth, we must address these issues. But at the same time, we must recognize that over the 7-year period beginning 2005-06, the Indian economy has grown at 8.3%. We must not also overlook that the Indian economy has undergone very fundamental changes in the last 2.5 decades. We must also not overlook the adverse impact of the slow growth in the advanced economies. I want to be very brief. I want to make only a few comments on the Indian economy at this point. Looking back, 1991 is an important landmark in the post-independent economic history of our country. The country faced an acute economic crisis triggered by a severe balance of payments problem. And the crisis was converted into an opportunity to bring about some fundamental changes in the content and approach to India's economic policy. There is a common thread running through the various measures introduced since July 1991, and that is to improve the productivity and efficiency of the system by injecting a greater element of competition in the system. And this is also sought to be achieved by removing the barriers to entry and growth. The private sector is being offered a greater space, a greater opportunity to operate. Some of the sectors which were exclusively reserved for the public sector are now thrown open to the private sector. But there is nothing in the new economic policy which takes away the role of the state. The new economic policy has not diminished the role of the state or the government. It has only redefined it, expanding it in some areas and reducing it in some others. The role of the state as a producer of marketable goods and services has come down, but its role as a regulator, as a provider of public goods and services has in fact increased. And that is why it has been somewhat critically remarked that more market does not mean less government, but only different government.